Have you ever felt like someone could read your emotions before you even said a word? Or maybe you know someone who seems gentle and dreamy on the outside, but carries a depth that's hard to explain. That's the world of Pisces. They don't just feel, they absorb. They don't just dream, they live between reality and imagination. And here's the shocking part, most people have no idea how complex Pisces truly are. Behind their soft eyes and quiet presence is a soul that's constantly sensing, healing, struggling, and searching for something deeper. In this video, we're going beyond the typical zodiac traits. We're diving into the hidden psychological truths of Pisces. The kind of truths that explain their behavior, their choices, their love, their pain, and even their silence. If you've ever loved a Pisces, or are a Pisces, what you'll discover today might change how you see them forever. So grab a quiet moment, take a breath, and stay with me until the end, because some of these insights might just feel like they were written about you. And hey, if you enjoy videos like this, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Let's dive in. There's something unique about Pisces that you can't quite explain. They walk into a room, and somehow, the energy shifts. It's not because they speak loudly or demand attention. It's because they feel everything. Before a word is said, they've already sensed the emotions hanging in the air. Maybe you've seen this in someone close to you, a friend who knows you're upset just by looking into your eyes. Or maybe you've experienced it yourself, wondering why you feel so deeply. Even when it's someone else's pain. That's not coincidence. That's Pisces. What many people don't realize is how much Pisces internalizes the emotions of those around them. It's more than empathy, it's almost like emotional osmosis. They don't just understand how others feel. They become those feelings. If a friend is anxious, Pisces feels it in their own chest. If someone they love is grieving, they carry that grief like it's their own. It's a beautiful gift, but also a heavy one. And the truth is, most Pisces don't even realize how much of their inner storm doesn't actually belong to them. That's why Pisces often feel emotionally exhausted without knowing why. They've been holding space for everyone else. Listening. Absorbing. Soothing. And in the process, they sometimes lose touch with where their own feelings end and someone else's begin. This is something many Pisces struggle with silently. They want to help, to be there, to heal, but they rarely ask themselves, and who's holding space for me? Think about a Pisces you know. Maybe it's your partner, your sibling, or even your child. Think about how often they've said I'm fine when you knew they weren't. That's their way of protecting others from their emotional weight. But deep inside, they long for someone who just gets it, without them having to explain. One of the reasons Pisces are so emotionally tuned in is their highly intuitive nature. They don't need facts or explanations to know something's wrong. They just feel it. Have you ever been upset and had someone text you out of the blue, asking if you're okay? There's a good chance that person has strong Piscean energy. Their inner compass is guided by emotion, not logic. They're the ones who notice the silence between your words. The ones who see through your forced smile. And while this gift is rare, it comes with a cost. When Pisces constantly live in emotional awareness, especially of others' pain, they can easily absorb negativity from their surroundings. This could be a toxic workplace, a tense home environment, or even just spending too much time with people who constantly vent without offering space for Pisces to do the same. Over time, this emotional weight becomes overwhelming. But because Pisces are so used to carrying it, they don't always recognize the signs of burnout until it hits them hard. That's why it's so important for Pisces to set emotional boundaries, something that doesn't come naturally to them. They need to learn that it's okay to take a step back. To say no. To protect their energy without feeling guilty. If you're a Pisces listening right now, this is your gentle reminder, you don't have to carry everything. Your compassion is beautiful, but it's not a burden you must wear like armor. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do, for others and for yourself, is to simply rest and feel your own emotions without distraction. This desire to heal others often has a deeper root. Many Pisces try to fix the pain in others because, on some level, they're trying to soothe the unresolved wounds within themselves. Maybe they were the child who comforted everyone in the house when things fell apart. Maybe they learned early on that being the calm one made things safer. That survival pattern often grows into adulthood, where they become the therapist friend, the emotional anchor, the quiet supporter. And while it's noble, it can also become a way of avoiding their own healing. Let me tell you about Sarah. She's a Pisces in her 30s who works as a nurse. Everyone at work loves her. She listens. She remembers birthdays. She stays late when someone's having a hard day. But when she gets home, she crashes. Not just from physical fatigue, but from emotional overload. She cries in the shower. She journals at night, pouring out everyone else's problems. She rarely talks about her own. And yet, she doesn't want to stop caring. What helped her wasn't becoming less emotional, it was learning to protect her sensitivity like a sacred gift. She started meditating, taking solo walks, saying no without apology. Slowly, she learned that saving others shouldn't come at the cost of saving herself. For Pisces, solitude isn't loneliness, it's a necessity. It's where they return to themselves after being stretched thin by the emotional tides of the world. When they have space to just be, their imagination and creativity come alive. Some of the most profound art, poetry, and music in the world has come from Pisces energy. That's no accident. Their inner world is vast. Sometimes even bigger than the world outside. But if they don't honor it, if they don't give themselves time to explore it, they become disconnected, drained, numb. Still, solitude isn't always easy. In silence, all the emotions they've absorbed rise to the surface. And that can be overwhelming. This is why many Pisces need rituals, gentle habits that help them clear emotional clutter. Things like journaling before bed, listening to calming music, taking sea salt baths, or simply turning off their phone for a few hours. These acts aren't luxuries, they're survival strategies for highly sensitive souls. But even in their quietest moments, Pisces dream. Not in a superficial way, but in the kind of dreaming that makes life feel magical. They don't just want a relationship, they want soul connection. They don't just want a job, they want purpose. They don't just want a moment, they want meaning. This idealism is beautiful. But it can also make real life feel painfully ordinary. That's when disappointment creeps in. When things aren't as deep, as kind, or as magical as they hoped. And yet, they keep hoping. That hope is what makes Pisces so special. Even after heartbreak, even after being misunderstood, they still believe in love, in healing, in magic. And maybe that's exactly what the world needs right now. So if you're close to a Pisces, treasure their sensitivity. Listen to the things they don't say. Make space for their silence. And if you are a Pisces, know that your emotional depth isn't a weakness. It's your superpower. But like any superpower, it must be cared for, honored, and sometimes protected. There's something quiet yet powerful about the way Pisces handles relationships. They don't force things. They don't rush. Instead, they observe. They feel. They wait until they feel safe. And even then, they hesitate, not because they don't care, but because they care too much. For Pisces, love isn't just a connection. It's a doorway to their soul. And walking through that door takes time. Many Pisces are shy in love. Not in the way that makes them distant, but in the way that makes them pause. They think before they open up. They want to be sure. Not about the other person, but about how much of their heart they're ready to share. When they do fall, they fall deeply. But until then, they need gentle encouragement. They need space to be seen without pressure. If you push too hard, they retreat. Not because they don't want love, but because love, to them, is sacred. Think of someone who hides behind a soft laugh or a polite smile, even when their heart is full. That's often a Pisces. They want to be loved, but fear being misunderstood. They want to trust, but fear being hurt. The best way to love a Pisces is to be patient. To build trust slowly. To listen, not just with your ears, but with your presence. That's when their true self begins to emerge, a self that is full of loyalty, tenderness, and emotional depth. And when Pisces finally feel secure, they don't just love. They devote. They give everything they have. Their time, their heart, their thoughts. They remember the small things you say. They hold your pain as if it were theirs. And they expect nothing more than honesty and care in return. But here's the catch, they won't always tell you when they're hurting. Because conflict doesn't come easy to them. In fact, they avoid it at all costs. Confrontation feels like chaos to a Pisces. Not because they're afraid to speak, but because they feel every word too deeply. When someone raises their voice or criticizes them, it echoes in their chest for days. So instead of pushing back, they withdraw. They become quieter. They speak through subtle changes. A pause in conversation. A delay in response. A softness that hides a storm. This can be confusing to people who are used to direct communication. But for Pisces, indirectness isn't manipulation, it's protection. If you're close to a Pisces and notice they're more silent than usual, that's your signal. Something's wrong. They might be hurt. They might be overwhelmed. And they don't know how to bring it up without risking more emotional pain. That's where empathy becomes crucial. Ask gently. Sit with them. Make space for their truth. Let them know they're safe. When Pisces feel supported, they'll open up. But only when they know you won't dismiss their feelings. This sensitivity also shapes how Pisces understands love. Words matter to them, yes, but actions matter more. Telling them I love you is beautiful. But showing up when they're tired, remembering something they once mentioned, standing by them in silence, that's what proves love to them. They don't need grand gestures. They need sincerity. And they can feel the difference between affection that's real and affection that's just habit. Pisces are emotionally intelligent. They notice when someone's heart isn't in it. They sense when love becomes routine. And it hurts. Not because they expect perfection, but because they offer their love with so much truth. When that energy isn't reciprocated, it cuts deep. If you love a Pisces, show it. Not through constant praise, but through presence. Through kindness. Through choosing them over and over again. Let me tell you about Eli. He's a Pisces in his late 20s. His partner once told him she loved him every day. But when he lost his job and fell into a dark place, she stopped showing up. The words were still there, but the actions were gone. Eli never complained. He just became quieter. Started spending more time alone. Eventually, he ended the relationship. Not because he stopped loving her, but because he didn't feel loved anymore. That's the reality of Pisces love. It needs to be felt, not just heard. If you're not there fully, they'll know. And they won't chase. They'll slowly drift away. And that drifting, though quiet, is final. And when Pisces feels emotionally exhausted, something else happens. They start letting go. Not because they've made peace, but because they can't carry the weight anymore. They'll let you win an argument. Not because you're right, but because continuing to explain themselves feels like climbing uphill in a storm. They'll smile and nod. They'll say, "You're probably right." But inside, a part of them is breaking. They're not giving up. They're surrendering to peace. Because for Pisces, peace is more important than being right. But over time, this can become dangerous. If they keep silencing themselves, resentment builds. disconnection grows, and the relationship becomes one-sided. That's why it's so important to recognize when Pisces is checking out, not because they're cold, but because they're tired. When you see this happening, pause. Ask them what they really feel. Remind them that their voice matters, that their emotions deserve space too. Because when Pisces feels safe enough to speak again, you'll hear truths that are soft, but powerful. And you'll see a love that's more real than most people ever get to experience. This brings us to a truth that many people overlook. Pisces don't just care deeply. They struggle to say no. Not because they don't want to, but because their heart gets in the way. They feel guilty. They imagine how the other person will feel. They worry about letting someone down. So they say yes, even when they're already overwhelmed. This makes them incredibly generous. The kind of person who'll help you move, lend you money, stay up all night listening, even when their own world is falling apart. But it also makes them vulnerable. To users. To manipulators. To people who see their kindness as an opportunity, not a gift. If you're a Pisces, this is something to be mindful of. Your compassion is sacred, but not everyone deserves it. You don't owe your energy to everyone who asks for it. Saying no isn't selfish. It's wise. Boundaries aren't walls. They're bridges to better relationships. When you protect your peace, you create room to love better, not less. Learning to say no is one of the hardest things for Pisces. But it's also one of the most powerful. Because in that moment, you're not just protecting your time, you're honoring your worth. And every time you do that, you grow stronger, brighter, freer. These truths may not always be easy to face, but they hold something precious, the doorway to self-awareness, to healing, to more meaningful relationships. And as we continue, the next part of this journey takes us even deeper. Because in the next 3 insights, we'll uncover the parts of Pisces that are often hidden, even from themselves. The quiet willpower, the mysterious magnetism, and the way they transform pressure into impulsive choices. What comes next may be the most powerful and unexpected truths of all. Stay with me. Sometimes, people mistake Pisces for being weak, soft, passive. But what they don't see is the incredible willpower that lies just beneath the surface. Because while Pisces may seem dreamy or distracted at first, when they truly commit to something, they don't let go. There's a quiet force in them, a deep current that keeps moving forward, no matter how hard life gets. When a Pisces sets their heart on a goal, it's not just a thought, it becomes part of their soul. They pour themselves into it, emotionally, spiritually, and they often do it in silence. No big announcements, no showing off, just steady, meaningful action. Others might underestimate them because of their gentle energy. But Pisces doesn't need to prove anything. They just need to be aligned. And once they feel that alignment, their determination becomes unstoppable. Take Jonah, for example. He always had a passion for music. But life got in the way, family obligations, financial pressure, fear of failure. For years, he played guitar only at night, in his room, where no one could hear him. But that dream never left. It stayed, quietly burning. Until one day, he decided he couldn't ignore it anymore. He started recording. He taught himself production. He released his first album at 33. And it moved people, not because it was perfect, but because it was real. That's Pisces willpower. Quiet, emotional, but unshakable when it comes from the heart. This inner strength often goes unnoticed. Because Pisces isn't loud about their progress. They don't brag. They don't compete. They simply keep going. Their resilience isn't about pushing harder, it's about staying true. And in a world that often celebrates noise, that kind of quiet consistency is rare. But it's also powerful. If you're a Pisces, remember this: just because your journey doesn't look like everyone else's doesn't mean it's not valid. Trust the pace of your heart. It knows the way. And that strength doesn't only show up in their personal goals, it shows up in how they move through the world. Pisces has a way of fitting into almost any situation. They can lead when needed. Speak up when it matters. But they're just as content supporting from the background. They don't need the spotlight to feel important. Their sense of worth comes from meaning, not attention. In groups, Pisces often becomes the emotional anchor. The person others turn to when things feel heavy. They listen. They mediate. They understand. But they don't need to control. That's what makes them unique. They can step up and lead with compassion. Or step back and let others shine. Neither role threatens their identity. Because for Pisces, it's not about being seen, it's about being true. Think about Maya, a teacher who works with special needs children. She's not the loudest voice in the room. She's not the one chasing awards. But she's the one who stays late when a child is struggling. She's the one who notices when something's wrong, before anyone else does. Her students trust her. Her coworkers rely on her. And yet, she never needs recognition. Her reward is knowing she made someone feel safe. That's Pisces leadership. Subtle. Deep. Transformative. This ability to adapt, to shift between roles without ego, is one of Pisces' greatest gifts. But it's also what makes them easy to overlook. In a world that often rewards boldness, Pisces can get lost in the noise. That's why it's important to recognize their contributions. To let them know their presence matters. Because when Pisces feels appreciated, they blossom. They offer wisdom, creativity, healing. They become the heartbeat of any space they're in. And perhaps most surprising of all, Pisces attracts attention without trying. They don't chase it. They don't need it. But people are drawn to them anyway. There's something magnetic about their energy. Something soft, yet powerful. It's the kind of presence that makes others feel calm, safe, curious. You've probably noticed this if you've ever been around a Pisces. People tell them their secrets, ask for advice, want to be close. Not because Pisces tries to impress, but because their sincerity shines through. There's no facade, no pretense. Just honest, soulful connection. That's what people crave. And Pisces gives it effortlessly. But this magnetism can also be confusing. Because while people are drawn to them, Pisces often feels misunderstood. They're seen, but not always known. Admired, but not always truly connected with. And that can be lonely. Especially when others are only interested in what Pisces gives, not who they are. That's why real relationships matter so much to them. They don't want shallow admiration. They want depth, trust, intimacy. And when that's missing, even the attention they receive feels hollow. If you're close to a Pisces, remember this: what they long for most isn't applause. It's authenticity. A hand that reaches back. A heart that listens. But life isn't always calm waters for Pisces. When pressure builds, when they feel trapped or emotionally overwhelmed, something else happens. They can become impulsive. Not in a reckless way, but in a way that's fueled by the need to escape. To feel free. To stop the internal noise. Imagine a Pisces who's been holding everything in: stress at work, tension at home, emotional responsibility for everyone around them. One day, they snap. They quit their job. End a relationship. Book a one-way ticket to another country. From the outside, it seems sudden. But it's not. It's been building for months. Maybe even years. And that moment of impulsiveness? It's not random, it's release. Pisces doesn't want to hurt anyone. But when they reach their emotional limit, they need to move. To breathe. To feel like they're in control again. This can lead to regret if they act too quickly. But it can also lead to powerful transformation, if they take the time to understand why they reacted. If you're a Pisces, or loved one, learn to recognize the early signs of overwhelm. Don't wait for the breaking point. Talk. Rest. Create space. Because when Pisces feels supported in moments of tension, they don't need to escape. They can reflect. Regroup. Realign. And in those moments, they don't just survive pressure, they grow from it. These 4 truths reveal a side of Pisces that's often hidden. Behind the softness is strength. Behind the calm is adaptability. Behind the quiet is magnetism. And behind the dreaming heart is someone who feels pressure more intensely than anyone realizes. But we're not done yet. Because in the final part of this video, we'll uncover the 3 most intimate, vulnerable, and potentially controversial truths about Pisces. We'll talk about their evolving relationship with intimacy, their love for solitude, and the one kind of betrayal they may never fully recover from. Trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next. Intimacy, for Pisces, is never just physical. It's never just about the moment. It's about everything that surrounds it, the emotional build-up, the trust, the subtle glances, the sense of being completely seen and accepted. That's why, at first, Pisces might seem shy or even hesitant when it comes to closeness. Not because they aren't interested, but because they need more than just chemistry. They need connection. They need to feel safe enough to let their walls down. If you've ever been in a relationship with a Pisces, you might have noticed this. They don't dive in instantly. They take their time. They observe. They listen to how your energy feels, not just what your words say. They're trying to answer one silent question: can I open my heart here? Will it be held with care? And once that answer is yes, the shift is beautiful. Pisces becomes vulnerable, open, even bold in their expression of love. They begin to explore, to share, to give you parts of themselves that no one else has seen. That's when their imagination takes over, not in fantasy, but in tenderness, in creativity, in emotional depth. But if you move too fast, if you demand instead of invite, Pisces will close up again. Because for them, intimacy is sacred. It's not a transaction. It's a transformation. They don't separate body from soul. So when they trust you enough to share that space, it's an act of emotional bravery. If you're lucky enough to witness that side of a Pisces, treat it with the reverence it deserves. And while they crave emotional closeness, Pisces also deeply values time alone. Solitude is like oxygen for their spirit. It's where they return to themselves after giving so much of their heart to the world. Some people misunderstand this. They think Pisces is pulling away or losing interest. But what's really happening is healing, recharging, processing. Pisces feels more in a day than some people do in a month. And without time to sit with their emotions, to listen to their inner voice, they lose clarity. That's why alone time isn't optional, it's necessary. During those quiet moments, Pisces reconnects with their creativity, their spirituality, their inner wisdom. They may write, or walk in nature, or simply sit in silence, letting the world slow down enough for them to breathe. But don't mistake their love of solitude for isolation. Pisces can be incredibly social, warm, engaging. They adapt easily to people, and they're often the emotional glue in group settings. But they need balance. Too much noise, too much energy from others, and they begin to feel scattered. The healthiest Pisces are the ones who've learned to protect their stillness, who know when to say, "I need this evening just for me," and who aren't afraid to take space without guilt. If you love a Pisces, respect their need for quiet. Don't take it personally. It's not rejection, it's reflection. And when they come back, they return softer, clearer, and more present than ever. But there's one kind of pain that touches Pisces deeper than most. One kind of wound that leaves a scar they may carry for years. And that is betrayal, especially in the form of infidelity. For Pisces, love is not casual. It's a bond. A sacred promise. When they commit, they give all of themselves. Their dreams. Their emotions. Their loyalty. So when that bond is broken, it shatters something fragile inside of them. It's not just the betrayal of trust, it's the loss of safety. Of meaning. Of belief in the connection they held so close. They won't always show it. They may even forgive. But they never forget how it made them feel. The heartbreak stays. The questions linger. Was I not enough? Did I not see this coming? Should I have protected my heart better? They turn inward, analyzing every detail, trying to make sense of what feels senseless. And yet, Pisces still wants to believe in love. That's the paradox. Even when they've been hurt, they crave connection. They may withdraw for a while. They may build stronger walls. But deep inside, there's still a flicker of hope. Still a longing to find someone who honors what they offer. If you've betrayed a Pisces and want to rebuild that trust, it won't happen overnight. It requires time, consistency, transparency, and most of all, emotional honesty. They need to feel that you understand the depth of the pain you caused, not just in words, but in actions. And even then, the healing isn't guaranteed. Because some cracks, no matter how gently tended, never seal completely. So if you're in a relationship with a Pisces now, and you value what you share, protect it. Be loyal. Be real. Don't take their trust for granted. Because once it's gone, it rarely returns in the same form. Now, let's shift to something that's beautifully complex about Pisces. The way they see life. For them, life isn't just about goals or schedules. It's about moments that feel magical. They want more than routine. They want wonder. They want to wake up and feel like they're part of something meaningful. Something that stirs the soul. That's why Pisces often live as if life were a story. A poem. A dream. They romanticize the world, not out of naivety, but out of a need for beauty. They look for signs in the stars. Meaning in music. Messages in random encounters. And when life feels too dry, too harsh, too mechanical, they begin to drift. Not physically, but emotionally. They check out. Because their spirit is starving. But here's the thing. That dreaminess isn't weakness. It's their fuel. It's what allows them to create. To inspire. To bring softness into a world that can be too sharp. When they're supported in their vision, Pisces can bring magic to the most ordinary things. They'll turn a rainy day into a cozy memory. A quiet conversation into something unforgettable. But when they're forced to live only in logic, something inside of them wilts. If you're a Pisces, don't ever lose that spark. Yes, stay grounded. But don't dim the light you bring. The world needs dreamers. It needs people who still believe in mystery. In hope. In love that feels like home. And if you love a Pisces, join them there. Help create moments that feel enchanted. Surprise them. Write them a note. Take them somewhere new. Not to impress them, but to remind them that they're not alone in their search for something more. As we reach the end of this emotional journey, we still have 3 powerful truths left. And these final insights about how Pisces makes decisions, what they truly seek in love, and the quiet strength behind their dreams, may be the most profound of all. If the truths so far have resonated, what comes next might feel like looking into a mirror. Stay with me. We're almost there. Sometimes, the world pushes Pisces to choose with logic, to weigh pros and cons, to follow the rules. But that's not how Pisces is wired. They make decisions with their heart, with their gut, with a quiet inner voice that often whispers what no one else can hear. It's not impulsive, it's intuitive. They just know when something feels right, or when it doesn't, even if they can't explain why. For Pisces, life isn't a list of checkboxes. It's a feeling, a vibration, a moment of alignment. So when they choose a path, it's not always the most practical, but it's the one that speaks to their soul. And that choice, though misunderstood by others, usually leads them exactly where they need to go. Of course, this can cause tension, especially in a world that rewards certainty. Pisces often doubt themselves. They wonder if they're too idealistic, too emotional, too sensitive. But in reality, they're tuned into something deeper, something many people have forgotten how to hear. If you're a Pisces, trust that voice, the one that speaks softly but never lies. It's your gift. It's your compass. This way of living also shows up in love. Pisces doesn't fall for appearances. They fall for energy, for essence, for the way someone makes them feel at ease, even in silence. Winning the heart of a Pisces takes more than charm. It takes patience, presence, and emotional honesty. At first, they might seem distant, hard to read, but they're watching, feeling, listening, waiting to see if your energy is safe, if your heart is kind, if your words match your actions. They don't open up easily. Not because they're guarded, but because their love is sacred. And once they give it, they give everything. When Pisces loves, it's not halfway. It's all or nothing. They become the person who remembers how you take your coffee, who texts you just because they felt your energy shift, who stands by you on your worst day, and doesn't ask for anything in return. Their love is nurturing, devoted, deep. But getting there takes time. You have to show them they can trust you. Not just once, but consistently. You have to make them feel emotionally safe. Let them be quiet without pressure. Let them speak without fear of being misunderstood. And if you do, you'll discover a kind of love that's rare. A connection that feels almost otherworldly. And maybe that's what makes Pisces so special. They don't just seek love. They become love. They make it real, tangible, healing. But only when they're met with the same energy in return. Otherwise, they quietly drift away. Not out of bitterness, but because their soul knows when it's time to let go. So if you're lucky enough to have a Pisces in your life, be present. Be kind. Be real. Because when they love you, they give you a piece of something sacred. And that kind of love is worth holding on to. At the end of this journey, what do we really see? We see that Pisces is not just the dreamer, not just the romantic, but the quiet force, the emotional compass, the soul that feels the world more deeply than most people ever will. They absorb. They transform. They give. They carry beauty and burden in equal measure. And in that, they teach us something powerful. They remind us that sensitivity is strength. That dreams have value. That love, when it's honest and soft and steady, can still change the world. Maybe you've seen yourself in these words. Or maybe you've seen someone you love. If you have, I invite you to stay with us. Subscribe to the channel if this spoke to your heart. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And tell us in the comments, what part of Pisces do you connect with most? This is only the beginning. There's so much more to uncover about the soul behind each zodiac sign. And I promise, the next videos will take you even deeper. Until then, protect your heart. Trust your intuition. and never stop believing in the magic that makes you, you.